Hey knitters, welcome to episode 210 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I'm your host, Devin Ventry. You can find me at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Welcome to the podcast. What do you think of this view? Pretty nice, right? Because you can see the whole rug. I love this rug. In case you're new, this is my grandma's rug. She died in 2004, but she made this beautiful rug. This type of rug reminds me of her, and her whole house is basically carpeted with these rag rugs. Literally carpeted, like one went up the stairs. I designed the Timothy Ridge shawl years ago now as a kind of a testament to this type of crafting that my grandma did. So I love that it's in the shot. What do you think? Something new, right? I'm drinking out of my Colorado mug. Thanks, Deb and Julie. Hi, ladies. Can't wait to see you. Less than 2 weeks. And I've got my Murdog on there. Welcome to the podcast. Please subscribe if you are new. It is -1,000,000. Not really. But in Virginia, when it's like 20 degrees, like that's like crazy cold for us. We get that a little bit. Probably most winters we get it a little bit. But it's been really cold for a while. And as you know, if you're following politics, the inauguration is on Monday. I only live about an hour from DC. I mean, and that's with traffic. It's less if there's not traffic. But so yeah, the inauguration is going to be indoors because it's going to be like 7 degrees tomorrow. Plus we're on Monday. Plus we're supposed to get a bunch of snow tomorrow. So like for us in Virginia, this is kind of a big deal. I had a commenter last week being like, I live in Wisconsin. Like, why do I have no snow? And all you Southerners are getting all the snow. Apparently, like I love these like YouTube videos that show like the whole country's weather. And there's like snow coming into the South. It's crazy. Anyway, all this is a good opportunity for us to wear our knits, right? Right. I am wearing, which you can see in its entirety, even though I'm sitting down. It's always a little wrinkled. I'm not like great about folding stuff up really carefully when I put it away. I probably should be, but this is my Audrey sweater. It is a worsted weight raglan sweater. I know many of you have knit this sweater. It is a very, very simple knit. It has a set of increases here, and you change needle sizes to change the gauge as you knit down the sweater. And then you start off with this shaping here and then switch to raglan shaping. And it's just very, very wearable. Do I need to stand up? I don't know. There it is in its fullness. I was like, what haven't I worn in a while? Like I haven't worn Audrey in a while. And I have 2 of these. Maybe I'll pull the other one out for next week, because there is one more podcast before the retreat. Yay! Okay, progress and shop news. All right, the February sock clubs have shipped. Now, they all went out already for February, but a few people have canceled. If you want to get in on the sock club starting in March, pause the video right now and go check my website and see if they are still available over on the website. There were a few cancellations, and so I have a couple spots opening up for March. So go grab that if you want it. Yeah, so a lot of people, they've all shipped for February. Some people have gotten theirs. I don't think anybody has posted them yet because not everyone has gotten theirs. But I did want to just show you a little montage of the January socks. These pictures are from the Facebook group. They all came out so good, and they're so different because like me, many of you are like me, where when you see a pattern and it has certain directions that maybe you just don't feel like doing, you want to do it your own way. And many of you did that. So this pattern calls for, I believe, an afterthought heel. And some of you were like, I don't want to do an afterthought heel. I want to do a heel flap and gusset, which is totally fine because we are knitters and we can do whatever we want. That's part of the beauty of the knitting. So they came out so great, so many different ones. When people start posting pictures of their February yarn, I will show you that when everyone gets there. So that's exciting. Anyway, those new spots. So what will happen is, I think when you go to buy it, you'll be charged, and then it won't charge you on the 1st, and then March's yarn will ship mid-March, around, I'm sorry, mid-February, around the 15th of February, March's yarn will ship. So if you have any changes you need to make to your subscription, you need to do that before the 15th, like if you have a new address or whatever. You need to do that before the 15th because that is when they ship. Okay. By the way, Charlotte Stone, who wrote those lovely books that I shared last week, the Colorwork sock books, they're so good. Are they here somewhere? I don't know where I put those. Anyway, she sent me a message on Instagram that was like, hey, I heard you were talking about my books. Thank you so much for sharing them. And it was just so friendly and nice. And I thought I would tell you guys because how nice is that? I love that. I have been working on the retreat 24/7, like it's my job, because it is. That's what I do. It is going great. Everything is right on track. Thank you so much to my grapevine knitter, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Lisa has heroically volunteered to allow me to ship all of my boxes to her home in Grapevine so that she can hang on to those for me. And then the morning of the retreat, Gigi and I'll drive over there and pick them all up. And she's also volunteered to help me put together the swag bags. And Laura, hi Laura, who's also volunteered to help. Thank you to these helpers and my wonderful teachers. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much. So yeah, there's this podcast. I will be here next week. The week after that is the retreat, so there will not be a podcast that week. And then February 8th, we will do a retreat recap. So it'll be like you were there. You'll get to see all the pictures and hopefully I'll get some video and I'll show you all of the good swag that everyone got. I do have some extra things. So here's what I'm gonna do. After the retreat, we're going to have a like you were there lanyap session. What is that? What are you even talking about? So back when my oldest daughter was in 8th grade, she was in the county, state, I can't remember, state spelling bee? I don't remember. She was in some fancy spelling bee. And so we learned a lot of new words like the word lanyap. A lanyap is a free gift that is given to you by a business just as a thank you for your purchase, etc. So I will be giving out lanyaps with your order after the retreat. I'll just be including them in your order of things that are left over. Things that were either went in the swag bag that I had too many of. And I just thought you guys would probably like to have those and it'll be like you were there. So the bigger the order, probably the higher value item I will put in as a lanyap. Smaller orders will get smaller lanyaps. So again, not starting now, but starting after the retreat, I will be doing that. How fun is that, right? Something fun. February's color of the month is probably going to be late. It is definitely going to be late. Probably around Valentine's Day-ish, maybe a little before I'll have February's color of the month. Maybe by the 8th. By the 8th is a good goal. But yeah, I just can't do it. Knitty McPurly is a one-woman show and this is all I got. So yeah, but better late than never, right? We'll have February's color of the month and it's gonna be great. Okay. Oh, I still have some December. I updated the website. I had not shown that there was a sock set left, but it is up there now. I have a sock set and I have it in fingering weight and DK weight. Dubrovnik DK always takes the colors the most vibrantly. Of every base I have, Dubrovnik DK just shows off the colors the best. I mean, it looks great in every base, if I may say so myself, with that, it's hard to see because it's so bright in here, but with that eucalyptus in there, it's so pretty. Anyway, December's color of the month is still available. Go and get that if you would like it. All right, moving right along to my personal knitting. You're gonna be like, Devin, you have been preparing for a retreat. with 100 people coming. And you've been sending out sock clubs and dyeing yarn. Like, how on earth are you getting so much done on these personal knitting projects? Well, I'll tell you. At my kids' school, they have midterms, and it's a half an hour from my house, and the midterm lasts an hour and a half. So the days that I don't have Charlotte with me, which have been a couple of days because my husband has been home, I have taken my knitting, and I've just had like 2 hours of knitting in the car while my kids are in there doing their midterms, because it's not worth it for me to drive all the way home and then drive all the way back. So I just wait for them. But I have gotten a crazy ton done, and I even have this on 2 needles because I wanted to take a picture that did not turn out amazing, but it stretched out a little bit. What do you think? Isn't this so pretty? This is the Cottage Swan Show by, I forget her name, Olga. I think her name is Olga. Anyway, this is Dubrovnik DK, and I used Fontaine. The green is like the background color, and that is Meadow. Trinket, and then this is January's color of the month. Isn't it great? So I think I've got like one more section of color, maybe 2 more colorwork sections, but they're skinny. And then maybe I split for the sleeves. I haven't really read that far. I don't know, but I love it. I would love to have it done for the retreat, but that's not going to happen. There's just no way. So I'll probably bring it with me, and I will be working on that on the airplane and at the retreat. So yeah, I'm gonna haul my giant sweater there. Are you gonna haul your giant sweater? I feel like we should. Like, that's what we should do. Now, are you gonna bring one project, or are you gonna bring multiple projects? I was thinking, because this is kind of I have to think about it sweater. It'd be good to have it for certain parts of the trip. But I also wanted to have another project. Oh, and this is in my, my humanitarian aid bag that I got from the Minuteman, whatever it's called, in the place, made by that one lady. This is like so informative. Oh my goodness. Okay, but I also needed a mindless project, like a simple project that either Gigi or I could bring to work on. Gigi's coming with me to the retreat. Yay! She has so much fun. Like, we just have so much fun together. It's gonna be great. So I wanted a project also, in addition, that she could work on or I could work on, because she's not like me. She's okay with just sitting there and not knitting. But I feel like, she's like, if everybody else is going to be knitting, I want to be knitting. And I mentioned to you that my husband couldn't find some of the hats that I had made him before. I think we did find one of them. How did we find one and not the others? I don't know. Shouldn't they all be together, theoretically? Anyway, I decided that I wanted to make him a Musselburgh hat. Is that how you say it? Musselburgh? We don't say Musselburgh. I don't know. As Americans, we want to say Berg, but this seems kind of Scottish, and I feel like they say Burra. So anyway, I know many of you have knit this hat. It is extremely popular. If you don't know, you start with a teeny tiny little cast on, and then you increase, and then you knit this long, like 20-inch tube of just stockinette knitting, and then you decrease, and then you basically take the one end and smush it into the other end, and you have this hat that you can turn up. And I thought this would be perfect for my husband. I am using Freetown Fingering, which is a single ply, organic, super ultra soft base. And this is in the Roxette colorway, which is my husband's favorite color. So it's so cute, isn't it? You can see I'm just through the increases. Now, I did not increase in the way that she said to increase. It looks kind of like a, it's not what it is though. Could be, but it's not. This is, I did a knit front and back for the increases. And I believe she has like an M1 left and M1 right. And that's very sophisticated. And I went with the kind of ghetto knit front and back. But that's what I felt like doing. So yeah, so anyway, these are my increases, and I think I've got like 3 rounds of regular knitting, then there's one more increase, and then I'm just gonna knit the tube. Now, the cool thing about this hat, which if you've knit it, you know, you can use any yarn and any needles you want. And then once you get a little bit of it and you can measure across an inch, you just count how many stitches you have in an inch. And then she has a chart for, okay, well, if you have that many stitches in an inch, then in each quadrant, this is how many stitches you should have. It's a really cool pattern. It's very sophisticated, but you know, Ysolda, she's like Cher. I mean, you don't, when your name is Ysolda, you don't need a last name. It's a very sophisticated pattern, but at the same time, you can ghetto it up a little bit like I did. You know, you can kind of do what you want. So I'm really excited about that. So my husband is bald. He has no hair, which my children make fun of him all the time, which is great fun. And he doesn't care that he's bald, but his head does get cold in the wintertime. So I really think this basic hat is going to be right up his alley, because the other ones I've made him are a little bit fancier. And I think he will really appreciate having this basic one, especially since Gigi and I are both going to work on it. So that will make it even a little bit more special, I think. Okay. Comment section is coming up right now. There were so many good comments. Like, I could not pick all of them, but I really wanted to because there were so many good ones. Lefty Crochets and Mirror Knit said, for joining a new skein in knitting, I like the clasp or clasped weft join. When I have about 6 inches left of skein 1, I fold the yarn over to make a loop, take yarn 2 and pull about 4 inches through the loop and fold it over, then hold the yarns as if they are one strand and knit them. There are several videos on YouTube for this method. It leaves a little bulk, but it is not noticeable. So I have done this, and I think this is a great join. I do think the bulk can be problematic, but it depends. Like, I would tuck it away. Don't do it in the middle. You know, you're gonna see that. You want it tucked away, like if it was under the arm. If you're working on a sock, don't put it where you're gonna feel it, where you're standing. If it is a really thin yarn, you're gonna notice it less. If you're working with a bulky weight yarn and you've got 4 stitches of double bulky, I think that might be too much. But there are many scenarios in which this is totally great. Judy Crafts says, hi, Devin. When your podcast began, my eyes went immediately to the rug. It is so beautiful and extra special that it's a handmade family treasure. Yes, and if you're interested in knitting the Timothy Ridge shawl pattern, it's a scrappy shawl, and I tell the whole story about my grandma and her house and her. She wasn't a knitter, but she made these rugs, and they just always make me think of her. Judy says, my husband is not knit-worthy. He would not value a hand knit item in the slightest. In fact, hand knits are of no interest to him. However, he loves me. So he encourages my knitting, patiently admiring my progress as I proudly show him what I'm making. When we're taking a trip, he researches local yarn stores so we can visit, and he'll point out to me when our grandchildren are wearing my hand knits, although of course I already knew. He may not be knit-worthy, but he is a keeper, 46 years and counting. That is my husband exactly, Judy. Like, he's a total supporter, but not really interested in knitting. Beyond hats, I really should be more grateful of the fact that he wants hats. Like, I really should stop complaining. And I have been married exactly half that long. We will be celebrating 23 years in April. So awesome. Selfish Knitter says, I love the title of this episode. And she was talking about last week when the title was Math Always Wins. She says, it sounds like the moral of a math superhero saga, the hero we really need. Colleen is the Selfish Knitter, and she has this quality, and some of my children have this quality too, where they can come out with a zinger that's just, it's so few words and it's just so hilarious. So thank you so much, Colleen, for that awesome, awesome zinger. Olia, hi Olia, says, hi Devin. I think that the yoke depth conundrum is based on whether it is a raglan or a circular yoke. Absolutely. She says, In a circular yoke, the depth would be based on the number of rounds, which would be consistent all the way around the yoke, with an exception of the short rows at the back. But in a raglan construction, the yoke depth would be different from the row gauge, as you demonstrated in your video. However, I have also noticed that some patterns measure the yoke depth straight down using the row gauge, and some measure along the raglan line, which would be longer. Absolutely, yes, Olya is absolutely correct. And in the pattern, really the only mistake was just that it was mislabeled on the schematic. The schematic showed the raglan line as the yoke depth, and it just should have been written as the yoke depth. Also, another thing about Olya is that she contributed a free pattern to retreat goers. And I have a little flyer that's going to go in everyone's folder, and there is, I believe, a QR code or maybe just a code to download a beautiful sweater that she designed. So thank you so much, Olya, for that contribution. And I know that everyone is going to love it and be very, very excited to get that pattern. Amy says, hi Amy, says, I saw your Instagram post about the swancho and cheered. When the Poncho Akina pattern by Sharon Maninger came out, I initially thought it was a poncho with sleeves, and I thought, how brilliant. I tend to be hot-blooded, but thought I could wear such a creation with a tank top and balance my temperature. I was so disappointed to find that it is simply a beautiful poncho. But it made me start searching for what I envisioned, but I didn't know the word, thus the cheering. Now that I know of this magical word, swancho, I've been searching for the perfect pattern. I'm not up for color work at this time, but simply have yet to find it. Do you have any suggestions for simply adding sleeves to an existing poncho pattern? That's a complicated question, Amy, because it depends on the pattern. However, do an Etsy search for swancho pattern, and there are many that don't have color work. I found a couple that were just cables. In fact, Wise Owl Knits, who is Cheryl, hi Cheryl, she has a swancho pattern, excuse me, that is a cable swancho. So, and you could even probably omit the cables if you wanted to. That would be a little bit bold because it would mess with your gauge. But you could do it. And you could even do that with a colorwork sweater too. You could just omit the color work. I mean, again, it would take a little work on your part. But anyway, yes, these things are possible. Okay, this question, my mom was specifically interested in this comment from Oklahoma, Texas, Sheep Lady, who wrote in last week about how she brushes her knits to prevent pilling. And it can also help remove pills. So she has gone through the details of how she does that. So this is super helpful. She says, in answer to your question about brushing sweaters, it takes a very light hand. I don't usually find a tightly spun worsted or even woolen spun to need much more than softly brushing over the tops of any pills under the arms or on the sides. The goal is either to catch the pills and remove them or straighten them out before they can fully form. The cashmere sweaters I got at the thrift shop, where some poor soul donated them because they were covered with pills, needed hours of soft brushing to remove the pills. Wow, that is dedication. She says, don't press down enough to catch the yarn. You only want to catch the halo layer above the yarn. I hope that makes sense. It does. Yes, good explaining. She says, brushing has so far worked for all yarn types, but I haven't needed to use it on the few silk knits I have. Save Our Sweaters is a brush brand you might look into. That is all a lot of really helpful information. I find that superwash yarn does not pill very much, but I do have some yarn that's not superwash or that's woolen spun that does have a little bit more pilling. I have a gleaner, and maybe I'm just not patient enough, or maybe I'm not using it right. It does work. I just need to put in the time, I think. I get lazy and impatient. Impatience is like my worst vice. I'm just not very patient. And so I probably just need to give more patient attention to caring for the pills on my sweaters. I'm gonna do that. In theory, I'm totally gonna do that. All right, moving right along to the topic of the week. I had more comments, and I think I just didn't paste them into my document here because many of you asked for the story about the cabinet. So I'm gonna tell you that story. Basically, I had been dyeing, as you know, I was the pot queen. I had 1 million pots, each in their own individual burner, and that took a ton of electricity, and it's problematic, and here's why. You can only plug in a few at a time because they draw so much electricity. And I was constantly, also, they heat up and have hot spots. So you're on top of it all the time. You're constantly having to move the yarn and flip it and move it around so that you don't have hot spots. And so it was a ton of work. I couldn't leave the house. I was constantly at the beck and call of the alarm that I set on my watch that I have to go down and flip the yarn or move the plugs constantly. So that was untenable. I just could not go on like that. It was too much attention required. So when I went to Arkansas in September, Lori was giving me a tour of the Arkansas Yarn Company. In their back room, they have this whole amazing, beautiful, wonderful dyeing space. And I see this cabinet and I was like, what is that thing? And I see no burners, but there's a cabinet. And I'm like, I have no idea what this is. So she tells me, she dyes the yarn in this thing and I take pictures of it and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go get this thing. So Lori tells me that you have to change out the heating element to get it hot enough because these are holding cabinets that are made for restaurants. They're not made to dye yarn. That's not their purpose. And so I'm looking at these cabinets online and there's a million of them. It's not like there's just one. They come insulated, they come not insulated. Different ones get up to different temperatures. There are different sizes. You can get them from many, many different distributors. So I end up buying one. It's about $2,000. Lori has one that's more expensive than that. They get pretty high. They get pretty expensive. But if you are in a hot climate and you want it to be insulated, and you want the temperature to come up to a certain temperature. But again, I had never worked with this. Like I didn't know, but I'm like, I'm gonna go in and try this. So I get this cabinet and it takes a while. It takes a while to come, but it finally comes. And, I know how hot yarn has to get. And my husband's like, it's like the smoker. Like you just need to leave it for longer. But like a piece of meat, you can't dry it out. You have to keep it moist. So there's a lot that goes into dyeing yarn. There are some dye scenarios where you can go in with really hot water because you're fine with that dye adhering the second that it touches the yarn, such as, I chucked it over there, but such as in a color of the month scenario. You're putting different dye on and you're okay with that dye grabbing right on, so you can use warmer water. If you are dyeing a semi-solid, which is my cast of colors, you can't start with hot water because if you do, what happens is the heat and the acid and the dye just attach and there's no movement. You have to put the everything in cold so that you can get the dye evenly distributed through the yarn and you don't have chunks that have more dye. You're gonna have that anyway in a hand dye, and that's part of the beauty of it, but I like to control that, and I control that with temperature. So anyway, I put all my yarn in the cabinet, and I can get it up to a certain temperature, but it's not enough. It's not hot enough. I called the manufacturer, and I talked to just the most interesting guy about this cabinet and what I was doing with it. And he said, I get it. He said, you're not the first person who's talked to me about this. This is a thing. Lots of yarn dyers use cabinets like this. He said, but that's not what it's made for. It's not made to get it up to the heat that you want. He said, while Lori was able with her unit to change out the heating element to get that yarn up to the temperature that she wants, with my unit, I was not able to. And I really regarded it as a fun challenge. I tried many things to get the heat up to where I wanted it to be. I mean, the climate where you are matters too. Like, you know, in the winter, it's just hard to get it as hot. And if you live in a really warm climate, like it is down in Arkansas where Lori lives, you're gonna be able to get more heat into that unit. So anyway, what I do is I put it in there and I can leave it. I can leave the house. I can do whatever I want. And I can leave it in there for about 24 hours if there's enough water, because the water will evaporate. If it's a low water dye, I may need to go back and add some water. But I can leave it in there for as much as I want. And then what I do is I pull it out and I'll put it on a burner just to bring it up another 20 degrees. And then I cool it, and I'll take another one out and put it on a burner and bring it up 20 degrees. And that is very fast. I don't have to, it's so much easier because it's on my schedule. I do have a burner involved, but it's nothing like what I was doing before because all of the dye is mostly set. I just want to get it a little bit hotter so that it is fully set. And then I take it off and I cool it. And then I can start the washing process and it all just goes in a cycle. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to behold. So it's great. I love it. I would love to hear what other dyers are doing because there is that gap. It's like a 20-degree gap, maybe even 40 degrees, where you get it to a certain temperature where it's not fully set. You need to get it hotter. I'm not sure if other dyers are also using a different heating element, if their machine will accommodate that, or what they're doing to get those last 40 degrees. I'd love to know. Anyway, that's the story. I'm very, very happy with my scenario. All right, moving right along to knitting fantasies. So this morning I was scrolling on Instagram and I came across this. I was like, oh my gosh. It is a crocheted dog poncho with fringe. And I thought, this is just the cutest thing ever. This is a free pattern. I will link it below if you're interested. I just saw it and was like, this is adorable. And part of it is that the dog is so cute and I just love it. So my dog Rocky has a sweater. I have knit him a sweater before, but that was when he was littler and he kind of grew out of it. And so the sweater that I have for him is one that I picked up at Lidl a couple years ago. And we call it his hate sweater because he hates it so much. But sometimes he's shivering and the hate really warms him up. So we'll put the hate sweater on him and all that hate will warm him up and then we can take it off and he's much warmer. So I haven't really knit him a sweater because it would be terrible to put that much work into a hate sweater. So, and this one would not be good for him because this dog poncho is only acceptable for a dog that's willing to wear a poncho, and Rocky would have rubbed this thing right off. So, okay, for my second pick, and I might delve into this deeper in future episodes, but if you are not familiar with Zanete Knits, I think that's how you say it. She's Zanete Knits on Etsy and on Instagram, probably on Ravelry. Her first name is Zanete Hussein. I don't know where she's from. She has a very exotic sounding name. I don't know if she's not American, but she is an amazing knitter. Her work is just gorgeous. She's extremely prolific and she has many gorgeous colorwork sweaters. I took a little video. I'm just going to show it here while I'm talking about her. She has many beautiful colorwork socks with really interesting heels. She has some all one color sweaters, many gorgeous, both cardigan and pullover colorwork sweaters. I don't know if the cardigans are knit flat or if they are knit in the round and then steeked, but just so many beautiful patterns. I would love to knit one. She has one coming out called the Regalia sweater. And this one really caught my eye. However, hers is gorgeous, partly because she is, like we've talked about before, she is the kind of person that anything would look good on, combined with the fact that she is an amazing knitter and her knitting just looks gorgeous. So, you know, that's not always going to be, not all of us have that ability. So when I looked at some of the other patterns, some of the other projects that her test knitters had done, I liked it a little bit less. It's always a thing. You have to take into account your own body shape and size and your ability to knit the thing. This is a gorgeous design with this beautiful, intricate, cabley, twisted stitch, bobbly lace thing in the yoke. And on some body types, it looks amazing. On others, I just didn't think it looked as good. I think if you're a bigger busted person, you probably just wouldn't want that much attention drawn to this area with that contrast color. However, you could use a color that is a little, with a little bit less contrast. Oh my gosh, I feel like I have just talked your ear off this morning. Anyway, a wonderful, wonderful knitter. You should go follow her. I think we'll delve into some of her individual patterns in future episodes. But in the meantime, I have a wonderful knitting story shared with me by my friend, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for sending this to me. Sarah sent this to me like 2 months ago, and I apologize for not reading it until now. I have just had so many stories. It has been great. Thank you, thank you, thank you to Sarah and all of you who have sent me a story. You might remember Sarah from probably a year or two ago. She sent in a story about when she was in the military and she would have her knitting in her cargo pants pockets. She's a lovely person. Anyway, she says, "Hi, Devin. I have a short knitting story I would like to share. I posted this on my Instagram a couple of years ago, and this interaction has really stuck with me. I was flying home following the annual professional development conference my team hosts for several hundred staff from 54 states and territories. We consider this event our Super Bowl, and as you can imagine, it was very intense and stressful. Though I was mindlessly knitting, it was at a frantic pace as I was trying to decompress after the hectic week. I know, you recently warned us to chill out and protect our gauge when stress knitting. I was working on it. When flying, I am one of those people who will politely acknowledge the person sitting next to me, but then I put in my earbuds and tune out. All right, let me interrupt this wonderful story for just a minute to say, this is how every single flight interaction should be. You shouldn't ignore the person like they don't even exist sitting next to you. You should politely acknowledge them, say hello, and then leave them alone, right? Can we agree that this is how airline travel should be? Thank you. Moving on. Since I am usually a window seat person, however, on this flight, I was sitting in the aisle. Since I was working on vanilla socks, I was not looking at what I was doing. I was in my own head replaying and assessing many of the situations and encounters from the week. After a while, I noticed the older woman across the aisle from me smiling at my project. Her smile conveyed both happiness and yearning. She noticed me noticing her, and I took my earbuds out when I realized that she wanted to talk to me. She told me how envious she was that I could pass the time on the flight in such a productive and relaxing way. She shared how she used to knit fast, just like I do, without even looking because her hands just knew what to do, and it kept her sane for many years. She also told me about how she had a plate in her neck now, and that limited her movement. Plus, her hands hurt badly from arthritis, so she hadn't knit in quite a while. She asked if she could feel my yarn, and when I obliged, she took her time and unabashedly savored the opportunity. She wasn't sad or upset about what was gone. She was just nostalgic and grateful for what once was. Even still, our little visit hurt my heart a bit that day. Not only did I wish she still had the ability to knit, but I also felt a bit of dread thinking that there may be a time when I'm also unable to physically knit anymore. For the rest of the trip, I slowed down and truly enjoyed each stitch. I don't know her name, but I frequently think about her, and when I do, I dedicate a few stitches to her every time. And she has attached a picture of the socks that she was working on. If you want to follow Sarah on Instagram, she is Sarah Jean 77. Were you born in 77, Sarah? I was born in 78. So late 70s buddies. You know what's funny is I recently have been feeling some arthritis in my hands. I really had bad pain in my thumb the other day and I was like, no. So just have to keep that at bay, I think. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I have talked, oh my gosh, that's not too bad, 40 minutes. Anyway, thank you for joining me. It's been great talking to you. Thank you for listening to me for so long. How can I talk for so long? I don't know. Have a wonderful week and I will see you here next time. Bye, knitters.